All right, we are live tonight, Tuesday this week instead of Thursday, to talk about collegiate ministry. And I am so excited to introduce everybody, if you don't know him already, to Arliss Dickerson. For over 30 years, Arliss was the BCM campus minister at Arkansas State University. He's worked on the church side of collegiate ministry. He's worked on campus in collegiate ministry. He's worked in denominational life in collegiate ministry. He's literally done it all. In fact, a lot of us simply call him the Dean of Baptist Collegiate Ministries. Man, I'm so excited, Arliss, that you're making time to do this tonight. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to visiting, and thanks for doing this and waving the flag for college ministry.
Absolutely. So, kind of the format we have are just three quick questions. Take as much time as you need on each of them. I just want to hear your thoughts on it. And guys, if you're commenting below, we'll try to interact with that, throughout the evening. But first off, just decades of working in BCM life, you've got a perspective that a lot of us don't. So help us understand, the pastors out there, even the BCM alums out there like me, what has BCM meant to Southern Baptists historically?
Well, I think the easiest and most simple answer is training lay leaders in churches. Because as you know, one of the big things in our ministry has been developing our ministry through leadership teams and so forth. And what that has done is then train these folks when they go out, and they're doctors and teachers and housewives and dentists and whatever. It's trained them how to serve in their church. There are a lot of people serving. In my church recently, I looked at the worship band on stage, and there were 7 people up there, and 5 of them had been in our worship band on campus in BCM, and that was where they got their start. And at one point, the guy who was the leading person in the contemporary worship was the leader of our worship. And when we asked him to, he said, "I can't do that. I've never done that before." And so I think the number one thing is training lay leaders, both men and women. Another thing is, I think a lot of people would be surprised at how many pastors, missionaries, and all of that, different church staff, full-time Christian ministry people have come through BCM. I think, and I don't have this figure right at hand, but I think there's about 2,000 students active in BCMs and state colleges around the country right now who are preparing for full-time Christian vocation. And so it's not just Baptist colleges preparing people for the ministry, but it's BCMs as well. A friend of mine, I was on campus, University of Arkansas at Fayetteville the other day, and that day they were having their weekly luncheon for people going into full-time ministry, and where they just answer their questions and do some training. And they had 20 students in that meeting at that time. So just a lot of things like that happening.
So with that kind of not just legacy, right, but that kind of impact on our churches, what trends do you see in our cooperative collegiate reaching efforts that maybe SBC churches should be concerned about, maybe worried about? What trends are out there that ought to cause concern?
Well, I am concerned and worried because right now we're seeing a lot of cuts in collegiate ministry. And part of that is a result of, as many churches are experiencing cuts in their funding and so forth, and during the pandemic. And so that caused some cuts. And some say, well, you've got to pay the bills, you've just got to do whatever. Well, I agree with that. I understand. We do that at my house. We can't spend more money than we have. But what I think we're not being strategic enough in what we're doing in terms of college ministry. For example, one of the states recently that cut several of their college ministers, they did it through a retirement program, and other states have done that sometimes. And what happens when you do that is a lot of times you lose your most experienced people, the ones who are in your larger situations and so forth. Now, I'm not opposed to young people in college ministry. We need them. All of us were young and started out at some point. But when we lose those people that lead our large ministries, that mentor others and so forth, then I think that's a real problem, and that's one of the things that we see happening. And one of the things that some are saying, well, what we're going to do is we're just going to turn it back to the churches and have them do the ministry. And that's one of those things that sounds really good, but I think here's a couple of problems with it. I'm all about the church. I'm very involved in my church. I'm a deacon in my church, so I'm not speaking contrary to church. But most churches are not able to do a full-blown college ministry. They don't have the resources or whatever. One of the things that I think has been a little bit deceptive these days is we have some large church college ministries that get a lot of publicity, and they're doing a terrific job reaching a lot of students, both Christians, non-Christians, student profession of faith, et cetera, et cetera. But they have, a lot of them have as many as 10 or 12 interns. They have way significant budgets, et cetera. There's probably only about 50 churches somewhere in that neighborhood like that within the Southern Baptist life in the whole country. And so there's kind of a feeling in some, well, we turn it back to churches, that's what'll happen everywhere. And I think that's just, I don't think that'll happen. I think that's comparing apples and oranges. A friend of mine has said with the cuts that are going on, and I think he's absolutely right, is they're not intending to cut college ministry. We're collateral damage. It's not aimed at us. But I think the thing we've got to do as we start thinking about, okay, if we have less money to operate with, what are our priorities? What's going to impact the future for the greatest good and so forth. And I think when we start cutting back what we're doing and reaching young people, and some of our studies say, as you know, that 7 out of 10 high school students active in church when they go to college make no spiritual connections. And so we continue to lose more that way. And so if we're not very strategic in what we're doing with college students, then I think we're just giving up on the future and so forth. At one point, some years ago, there were about 900 campuses with a BCM, BSU, BSM, whatever the name was, ministry. Now there's about 750. And that counts everything from, the largest ministries to where there's like, one Bible study groups that meets and so forth. Also, one of the things I think it's huge is one of the things that I think BCM does really well is what I mentioned a while ago, is the thing about training leaders, but also in the area of doing many different things. There's international ministry. There's the ministry of helping churches. As I mentioned, training worship leaders, evangelism, summer missions, and so forth. And so I think it takes a specialized ministry to do all of those things. And one of my concerns right now, because a large number of college students are coming who are not believers, we've got a great emphasis on evangelism, which is a good thing. But one of the things we can't do is we can't lose sight of all these other things that we've been doing. And I think that's why it's important that we continue to have trained collegiate ministry people on campus working in college ministry and so forth.
So what trends are happening? What are you seeing in our cooperative collegiate reaching efforts that maybe you find encouraging? Like what's happening out there that is good, that pastors like me and some of the guys who watch these videos need to hear, need to know about?
Well, one of the things, every college minister I know of working on campuses, they need to be patted on the back for what they did during the pandemic and so forth. And I know it's not over and it varies different places. But boy, when it first hit, campuses just shut down. And I was amazed at how so many of our guys and gals were doing innovative things. They were having meetings with, 200 students online. They were having Bible study groups online. It was just amazing. They were having outdoor worship things, so I was just so encouraged, because it would have been easy during that time to just throw up our hands and say, well, we can't do anything, let's go home or whatever like that. And some people assumed they weren't doing anything, and that's not the case. In fact, they were working harder than ever, and I had great fear for many of them burning out due to that, but just so encouraging. Another thing that, some places I see some people saying, okay, we're gonna put 1 or 2 people on this campus that's going to be the leader of our ministry, but we're going to let them bring in other people who would raise their own salaries or raise a portion of their salaries. And I think that's an encouraging trend. I'm not for going that way totally, but I think that's one of the ways to supplement. As I said, like I know one ministry that has a large ministry with students. Well, they have 12 full-time staff members. All of those staff members raise their salaries. Well, if we have one or two people that, say, different conventions pay on a campus, and then we let them bring in some of their recent graduates or graduates from other places and let them raise their salary or raise a portion of their salary, and we put some into it, as some are doing now. And I think that's a very, very encouraging thing and a good thing developing. Some have been reluctant to do this because they say, well, it may take away from people giving to the cooperative program and that sort of thing. And overall, I don't think that's true, because one of the things we see is a lot of people today, in addition to what they give to their church, they want to give to something that they specifically are connected to and involved with. And I think if we don't give them that opportunity, then other ministries will give them that opportunity, and that's where they'll give that and so forth. So that's another encouraging thing. And I think we're thinking about, okay, how do we do this a little differently and so forth. And I'm aware of one state convention that they had some cuts in funding, and what they did is they came back to their college ministers, and instead of saying, okay, we're going to have to get rid of some of you, they said, we're going to ask each of you to raise a small percentage of your salary. Well, at first I was just kind of aghast at that, but then I realized as it went along, okay, what they were doing is they were keeping from cutting back. And so that has continued to work well for them, and they've not lost the number of people that they had and so forth. And one of the things I found is that alums really believe in what happened in their life and how God used the ministry to them, and they want to be a part of it and so forth. And like when I was still at Arkansas State, we had about 1,500 people on our alumni list at that point. And somebody said, well, I'd give you some money, but I can't give you enough to help you. And I said, well, if all of us gave a little bit, it'd be a big help. And so we started saying, okay, if all of us gave a little bit, it'd be $30,000 a year. And so one of the things I've really been involved with is trying to say to alumni, hey, give the ministry that blessed you $25 a year or $50 a year. If every college ministry alum gave $25 or $50 a year to the ministry that blessed them, it would be unbelievable what all would be happening in terms of a lot of our budgets and staffs and so forth.
Yeah, Arliss, I've seen your $25 campaigns in the past, and I thought that was just, a brilliant way of getting us as alumni engaged and involved in. I am where I am today because of how God used, BCM at Auburn University, Cleat Sites, as a campus minister, like I got to be for a few years here in Georgia. I know what blessing it can be. Let me ask you just maybe a bonus question, and
Sure.
I didn't give this one to you, but
no, that's fine.
What would you say to pastors like me, guys like me who are sitting here, maybe learning for the first time about the work of BCM? I know that our state conventions have a lot of work to do. They do good work, and BCM might not be in your state or the next state the number one priority, but pastors like me who want to make sure it's on the priority list. What can we do to encourage that we're not retreating from the campus, but we're engaging? What can we do to be on the team and to be a help or to lend our voice?
Well, great question. One of those is, I think, to be involved with the state denominational leaders and let them know what your heart is and so forth. And they're making tough decisions. They're making hard decisions. And so one of them is to be involved with them and let them know how important and significant this is to you. Because I think one of the things they're doing is they're saying, okay, what do we do? And then if we all have part of that conversation, and that's part of what I've been doing with some of the writing I'm doing recently, and I think that's one of the great things you're doing with this is let's be having a conversation. And I don't know who it was, you or somebody that said, hey, if we got a list of 15 things that are priorities, let's talk about where college ministry falls in there. Is Is it number 2? Is it number 15? Is it 12 or whatever? But be involved in that conversation. I think that's, and to say, let's have a conversation. I heard, talking about budget cuts and things like this. Somebody told me the other day that they were in a church where if they had to cut $10,000 out of the budget, they looked for an item in the budget that was $10,000. And so then they would just cut that no matter what it was. Well, as crazy as that sounds, they operated that way. Well, that's the way it is when we're not talking about our priorities and really wrestling with our priorities and so forth. So I would say pray for your denominational folks in your state, the Baptists in your Baptist building and so forth. Particularly work with whoever the state leader of college ministry is in your state. Let them know your forum. And then let, whoever, either your BCM, BSU, BSM director, whatever it is, let them know that you care, that you're praying for them. One of the big killers of college ministry sometimes is just feeling alone. Nobody cares but me, and I'm in this alone. Well, a lot of times that's not true, but we feel that way. And so, I've told people that, if somebody called me and said, hey, I prayed for you today or whatever, that was huge. And when I got that $25 check in the mail from an alum, it did two things. It didn't just go into our budget, but it encouraged me and helped me keep going. And one of the best things people can do is just be an encouragement to college ministers, because these are hard days. They're working hard. They're being innovative. They're struggling. A lot of them have had budget cuts because churches have lost money during the pandemic, and they're trying to do the same with less money and so forth. So be an encouragement to those local guys and gals that are out there working.
Arliss, thank you so much for your time tonight. It's always just so encouraging to me to sit down and talk. We haven't done this in a long time, but I love catching up with you and hearing your perspective on all of these issues. I just thank you for everything you've done. Reaching college students through the decades. You are a hero to a lot of us younger pastors, younger BCM guys, and I just appreciate how God's used you. And let me also kind of give everybody, I want to give you a shout out. Arliss writes it updates regularly a great blog about collegiate ministry, not just what's happening and what's going on, but how to do it, how to engage, trends that are encouraging, trends that we need to respond to. Arliss, how can they follow you? What do you have the address for that blog?
It's collegeministrythoughts.blogspot.com.
collegeministrythoughts.blogspot.com.
Yeah, and you can go to it, and you can go down to the bottom if you want to and sign up and get it by email. Usually it's about 2 a week. We're not going to flood you with stuff. Well, it's me. I'm not going to flood you with stuff or whatever, but most weeks there'll be 2, occasionally there'll be 1. But as I say, you can look at it and you can go back and look at any article in the past you want to, or you can get it by email, and it comes normally Monday and Thursday evening.
All right.
Hey, thanks for mentioning it.
Absolutely. We're definitely going to put that link in the comments below. Arliss, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Thanks all of you who are joining us and watching this video. God bless you. Have a great evening, and we'll touch base next week. One more interview, one more special guest talking about collegiate reaching in North America through the work of BCM. Good night, everybody. Thank you, Arliss. Have a great day.
Okay, great. Thank you.